Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi ho, everybody, and welcome back to D Plus Us Weekly, the show where we talk about shows exclusive to Disney Plus, episode by episode, week by week, for your enjoyment and ours. I'm one of your hosts, Griffin Nell Griffey, D-Padding with me, as always, is the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Miss George. How's it going?
I don't know what day it is. I've gotten so little sleep. I haven't stopped in like 4 days, and it's the best time of the year.
The holidays have been absolutely chaotic for us both, but despite that, we still took the time to sit down, watch what might be one of Disney Plus's greatest shows ever. I'm calling it now. And come here.
I tend
and
to
chat
agree
about
with
it.
you on that. I think this is a really interesting. It's really interesting seeing something that isn't as IP driven. Like I know it's an adaptation, so of course that fan base is going to show up. But to see something that isn't, yeah, I know. I see the shirt. We see the shirt. You talked about the shirt. Now you're wearing the shirt. I got it. To see people show up for something that isn't Star Wars, Marvel. I guess those are really the two
Star
tentpoles,
Wars,
I think,
Marvel.
when it comes to Disney Plus original content. But to see folks show up, I think there was an article of like the premiere was viewed by 13.3 million viewers, something like that, at the time of the article being written. So people are showing up for this, and it's a great time.
Yeah, it has been a fantastic show. I've loved every second as a Percy Jackson fan, and I've loved. I got to sit down this week. I got to sit down this week and watch it with my mom, who knows nothing about the show and nothing about the books, and she's like shocked at every twist and turn of this. And it's been fantastic. We saw some major edits this week that I really loved. And we'll get into all of that, but before we do that, let me hit you all with the rigmarole. First off, this is D Plus Us Weekly. This is our weekly version of the show. We also have a full version of the show where we talk about all sorts of things. Our next episode will be about What If Season 2.
Okay, I was going to ask what the next one was because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be watching. Thank God I'm already watching that.
It is What If Season 2. Then it was something else after that that's coming out soon. I forgot what it was. Yes, Echo, thank you. And then Treasure
All
Planet.
Marvel all the time.
That will leave the Marvel
Treasure
for
Planet.
him,
Yeah.
But yeah, you can check out all of our other stuff there. You can check out our other stuff. Yeah, there we go. That's all it is to it. Go check out our TikToks. You can catch my reactions to the first episode of the show there, as well as just clip outs from this show and, stupid bits and whatnot. Yeah, all that out of the way. We were talking about episode 3. We visit the Garden Gnome Emporium. This is a full spoiler show. We won't actually go plot beat by plot beat. There's a couple plot beats we're going to talk about because we have to, but this is mostly just reactions, chilling, having a good time for about half an hour, and seeing what we think of these shows. All that said, I love Medusa. Medusa is one of my favorite Greek myths, and I'm so happy they did her so well in this show.
This is an instance of a creator having written something 20 years ago, revisiting it and saying, hey, we can do this better. There's more about this character that relates. I think juxtaposing Medusa's story right against Sally Jackson's, and just the fact that there are so many parallels between the characters, and one ended up with an okay ending, even though she's currently trapped in hell, and the other one not so much.
It brings us back to that line that Sally has with young Percy last week, where it is not all monsters look like monsters, and not all heroes not all heroes look like heroes. Like we're seeing that a lot in this episode, and I think that's going to be kind of one of the big themes of both this season, as well as just Percy Jackson as a whole. I'm assuming at this point, with how good the numbers the show's doing, we are going to get more of this.
I mean, they've scoped out what 5 seasons would be, 1 book per season. I think that's going to be perfect. I think the pacing here has been really, really good. I think casting has been, by and large, relatively good. I mean, you've always got some inconsistencies or room to grow when you're working with child actors, and I do think we'll see that from Walker Scoble, Leah Jeffries, and Aryan Samadri
But
over the
even
course of the series.
still, I think
But they're
very
still doing a
good.
great job. Yeah, like they're very good for child actors. I don't like having to put that asterisk next to it, but it's just kind of the nature of something like this.
Honestly, with their performances, I don't think it needs the asterisk. I think that they're all doing really, really damn good jobs, especially Leah Jeffries. Especially Annabeth. Like, we all knew going into this that Walker Scoble was going to be perfect for Percy. And he is. He is Percy.
He's great.
In a nutshell. Expert level casting. But Leah Jeffries is killing it as Annabeth. I love seeing this, this earlier Annabeth in like the story of Percy Jackson being this very hardened, closed off individual who Percy just wears down bit by bit over these books, over these years, is something that I'm so happy to get to see happening in this show. Like, I know what happens between these two characters, and I cannot wait to see every little bit of it because they are so well done. And Aryan Samadri in this episode as well, killing it as Grover, trying to, ease the tension of stuff, having to deal with Percy being Percy and Annabeth being Annabeth, and these two very different people clashing with each other, and he just wants everybody to get along. Also, you have the backstory of Talia thrown into the mix in this episode, which, I teared up when we were talking about
those
that.
breadcrumbs throughout the series, I think is going to make, or throughout this season, it's going to make a lot of sense knowing the events of the second book.
Mm-hmm. Like, I love that we're getting these little bits. Everyone is so damn good in this show.
We said that in our trailer reactions, which you can go catch on YouTube. Like, knowing Jason Mantzoukas was here as Dionysus, knowing Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge in WWE, cast as Ares, and here getting Jessica Parker Kennedy as Medusa. I think she absolutely nailed this, especially given the departure from the character in the books, or the departure of who Medusa is in the Greek myths, like having that to draw on and being like, no, this is going to be a different take where she's relatable. And you like, I was sympathetic.
For me, this is who she is in the Greek myths.
Like, this is really good.
Like, Jessica Parker Kennedy, formerly of The Flash, which is just mind blowing to me.
To go there.
I had to bring it up. It's a great show.
And she's great in it.
She's great in it. Yeah. She's a standout performance to me in this episode because of how good Medusa is in this. Like, Medusa, in Greek mythology and in the many, many adaptations of Greek mythology, the best versions of Medusa have always been the original, which is this woman who did nothing wrong. She was nothing but good to Athena, and Athena ruined her life. She was not a monster before Athena made her one. And I love that we got that in this. Like, they really make it clear, like, no, I'm not a monster. Change to see
myth has made me that monster. Yeah.
And I've decided to embrace that role. Which, to each their own, right? If you're going to be forced to be the monster, there is many, many stories about that. Go watch The Bad Guys by DreamWorks. It's actually weirdly good. That said, like, that's not even, like, all this episode does is, like, Medusa stuff is great, and most of the episode, don't get me wrong. Everything about the Garden Gnome Emporium is so damn cool to me. Except for one tiny little detail at the very end of this episode.
Yeah, I like that little detail. Honestly, I think it makes sense.
No,
to
I think it's
that
fine.
In
I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's changing things a little bit. I mean, we talked about casting. That's
I just like to poke fun at. I just like to
well,
poke fun at Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I know. I think that's another role that's well cast. I think we get that here. Mm-hmm. With how little we get of him in this episode, I still think it's very appropriate to the character. It'll be interesting to see what more we see of him this season now that he's going to play a larger role in the narrative of the Lightning Thief than he did in the book.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he will. I don't think he's going to play.
I mean, just the fact that he's
role.
Here is a bigger role, right?
I mean, yeah, but we also knew that he was the one to deliver the head to begin with. It was just not something we ever actually saw. And even here, we don't really see it. Like, this is more just to, like, set up that Olympus is in New York.
I honestly think we might get a scene in Olympus with him delivering the head in the next episode.
I don't think we will. I think he'll be in the final scene where Percy's talking to the gods. But I think that's the rest. We'll see of Hermes, unless we see Hermes in the
casino.
In the casino, like everyone is been thinking about, which would be interesting. But no, I think one of the more interesting parts of this was everything with Alecto and Tisiphone, the harpies, Mrs. Dodds.
Mm-hmm.
Everything there with, that conversation with Annabeth, then to have that mirrored with Medusa's conversation with Percy, to finally get them to trust each other. It's so good. Everything with the prophecy is so good. How
Percy just
Percy's
kind of laying it all out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, we have that prophecy. You shall go west and face the god who is turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend, and you shall fail to save what matters most in the end. The major departure from the books on this one is that, Percy tells them about those last two lines real damn early.
Yeah.
He does not tell them about it until the end of the book.
Again, I think
I love it. It's a great change.
Again, it's just one of those things that's not necessarily being changed because of the change in narrative format going from novelization to screen. I think it just makes more sense this way. And it was one of those things reading this book as a kid. I'm like, okay, that was like again, Percy's a stupid kid. He's going to continue to be a stupid kid. That's kind of a through point of most of these books. And part of me reading this when I was younger is, oh, he's stupid. So he's just going to, hold these details until later, until it's bit them in the ass. And now getting out ahead of that, I wonder if it changes how anything resolves.
I don't think
in terms of the prophecy, I don't think it will. But it'll be interesting to see if that information being revealed earlier becomes a more, adds more impact to how the plot unfolds related to the prophecy.
Yeah, especially with the betrayal, I don't think it's going to change anything there.
No.
And it literally can't change anything with the you shall fail to say what matters most in the end. I definitely think the prophecy is going to stay the same. I loved everything with the Oracle as well, especially using Gabe. It was fucking funny.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, I'll give you that.
And Tim Sharp does like a weirdly good job at that delivery.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think it was really good. Like, it was very, it was meant to be slapstick, and then it was being delivered as deadpan as it could, but with that, New York twang on it, which I think was really funny.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Oracle is only in the first 3 books. That
sounds right.
I don't remember when Rachel comes in.
Doesn't matter. That's a problem for future seasons of this show. We're not there yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the 3rd because it's at the Hoover Dam.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny because I have to mention the Hoover Dam if we're talking about Percy Jackson at some point. Yeah, I love every bit of this show. Everything we got to see, the last little bits of Camp Half-Blood were great. Percy's just immediate Annabeth decision. And, hearing why he made that decision, great stuff. The fights, great. I love that, Percy Jackson fans know Percy as this massively powerful demigod. But he's not that in the Lightning Thief. He is very much figuring it out. He hasn't really been properly trained, and I like that we're seeing that. We got
it's
real cool magic.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, it's really interesting seeing him just kind of discover this stuff as he goes, where, he very easily could have turned himself to stone with Medusa's head, and thankfully didn't. But it's just one of those things of he has to be told, hey, make sure it's pointing away from you before you take the hat off, or you might be dead. Mm-hmm. Dead. I was yeah, that tracks.
Although just him decimating Mrs. Dodds. Or Miss Dodds.
That was pretty great.
Yeah, Mrs. Dodds. So good. There's so much good stuff in this show. Everyone is just so goddamn good. How'd you feel about the use of the volume in this episode? Did you even notice it?
No. Didn't notice it at all.
That's my favorite thing about the show so far, is they're using the volume in this. And it looks leagues and bounds better than the Mandalorian does in the volume.
I wonder if some of it is just the density, right? There's a lot more on set in those volume scenes, I think, here than there was in Mando. Also, I think our eyes have been trained to recognize it when it comes to space and Star Wars, less so with what we're seeing it used for here.
This is when I talk about the volume, like, because I really like the tech of the volume.
It's really
this
neat.
is the perfect application of it, because we're going to use this for some of the more mystical locations. We saw it in this episode, particularly in Mrs. Dodd's basement, or not Mrs. Dodd's, with Medusa's basement, with all the statues and whatnot, and like most of the background of that was the volume, presumably. But like I figure we'll see it in stuff like the Underworld or like Olympus.
Yeah,
and depending on how things go forward with the series, maybe underwater stuff or other mystical elements that the Percy Jackson series brings up. Yep. Like, I really think this is a very good use of it. Everything, like, the CG has not looked bad once to me in this show.
No, I think, no.
Actually, that's not true. That's not true. Chiron does look a little rough once in a while, but there's only so much you can do with a centaur without it.
The harpies in motion are also kind of like, okay. It doesn't blow my mind, but there is a bit of an uncanny valleyness to it.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's like, for Chiron in particular, it's not distracting, but it is a little amusing. Because, like, sometimes it just looks like he's staring off into space, but then you remember, no, he's just a solid human being taller than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, it's not bad. It's just kind of funny.
It's not great.
No, I think it's as good as you can do with a centaur wearing a suit.
That's fair. That's very fair.
But like the Minotaur looked great in that first episode. Like,
yeah, I think it was
great in this one.
Like that's more like I think the Medusa stuff looks great when it's in the dungeon. We don't see as much of it above ground. That's where the harpy thing to me is like, okay, with it being well lit is where I see more of the, not necessarily flaws, because I do think it's well animated. I just think it's more so it doesn't blend as well in daylight versus darkness, which is why the Minotaur looked great, why Medusa looked really good in the dungeon. The statues all looked really good.
I think there's a level of that is by design.
Yeah.
Because of the mist and how that works in Percy Jackson. Obviously, we're not in the room with them making the CG, so we cannot say one way or the other. I really like how it looks. I think the big test of this will be next week's episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
I feel like we can talk about what we can get, because we do have those little teasers at the end of these episodes.
Yeah. The bits and pieces make it look like it's going to be
pretty
good.
Pretty dope.
Yeah. Although we don't get as much action or motion, and that's really where, at least with the harpies, like having the one harpy dive through the bus and this stuff's like, oh, that didn't look great.
It was too fast to look bad. It was like half a second.
I know, but it's things like that for
but
whatever
also
reason,
the Chimera,
I
feel fine saying it because I say it in the teaser.
The
the Chimera is the big fight. This is one of the big fights that we're getting. This is going to be the big CG monster fight.
This is your mid-season finale, essentially.
Because this is what, 8 episodes? 6?
9?
I don't know. I just know I'm here for a good time.
I'm on IMDb. Give me 1 second. I'm just having to go back, and my internet's not behaving.
Well, you can see 8. Okay, you can see why why the show took so long for them to build. Like, they took their time making things look good, making things look right. Like, we didn't really talk about it too much, but in that first episode, that shift that Mrs. Dodds has into her harpy form looked so good.
Yeah,
and like I loved like the cuts we had in this episode between her harpy form and her human mist form. I can do nothing but rave about this show, Mitch. I love this show.
It's great. It's something that everyone should be watching. I don't know if releasing it as they are or when they did is the best decision. While there's a lot of room for folks to take this in over the holidays, I do think it might get lost in some of the other IP shuffle with, a week of its release being spent putting out weekly What If episodes. A couple weeks from now, we're getting Echo. A couple weeks after that, we're getting like I don't
See,
know.
normally I would agree, but I think I think it's doing the opposite.
I hope so.
Like, I haven't seen people talking about What If. I'm seeing people talk about Percy Jackson.
That might just be your echo chamber. I'm seeing more what if discussion.
Well,
than
you and
Jackson.
I have fairly similar Twitter feeds.
Similar, but I'm definitely seeing more what if than Percy Jackson. That's for sure.
Admittedly, I'm not caught up on What If. I only saw people talking about the first episode. I haven't seen anyone talking about the other stuff, but I also have not been on social media over the last couple of days because, holidays.
Yeah, I get that.
Speaking of social media, there is one thing I do want to talk about with this show that I think is just very funny. And this is going to be spoilers for the rest of the season, folks. So if you have not read it and you don't want this spoiled, don't listen to the rest of this episode. Go leave, because we have one of the last things to talk about. I have seen so many people now being like, "Oh my god, I love Luke." And I can't wait for people's hearts to be broken.
Little do they know.
Like, we're at a point now where I'm getting so overflooded with both people who know and people who don't know saying that they love Luke as a joke or as not. Like,
that's part of the tragedy of the character, right? You're supposed to like Luke.
Mm-hmm. But like, so many people are like, "Yeah, I think Grover's going to be the betrayer. I thought it was going to be Luke at first, but he's not on the quest, so he's safe." If only you knew.
Yeah, just you wait.
Yeah, this show is fantastic. This show is great. It's such a fun time. And it actually is making me look forward to those Tuesday night releases.
Thank God it's Tuesdays, honestly. Like, those Tuesday 9 o'clock is the best thing that Disney Plus has done over this year. I know it's been an experiment with a few different series that they've put out, but for me, I much prefer that than either having to squeeze it in before my morning commute or waiting until the end of Wednesday. It's honestly perfect.
Yeah, that release versus the midnight release, so much better.
You mean the 3 a.m. release?
Midnight release. West Coast, Best Coast. Yeah, I think this show's great. I can't keep saying that, so we're just going to wrap up the episode. We'll be here every week. Excited as hell to talk about the show yet again. But Mitch, if people want to keep up with us outside of those hours, where can people find us?
All the socials, all the Twitters and the YouTubes and the TikToks at D+us.
Yeah, go check out our other stuff. Go check out our normal bi-weekly episode. And until next time, have a magical day.